Maybe after this piece of episodes of seminar, we expect participants will discuss the concept of research ethics dumping and identify some cases of ethics dumping in the 21st century, and also try to describe some challenges of research ethics committees or IRBs in preventing ethics dumping. Then we'll take you some discussion on the global code of conduct for research in resource poor setting. And finally, we expect participants to apply equitable research partnership in their collaboration effort. These are our educational objectives. These are the presentation outlines accordingly. Well, the concept of ethics, research ethics dumping is a fairly new terminology or new concept, which comes within the last 2 to 3 years, and it is defined by European Commission, coined the term. It is to mean export of an ethical research practice from high-income country to low and middle income countries. Usually it occurs when privileged researchers from high-income countries export an ethical or something that the research cannot be done in their setup and experiment studies to less privileged in resource-wise with a different ethical standard, even sometimes with less oversight. This is simply the definition or the concept. It is sometimes people also name it as helicopter research, they call it, because people may come from high-income countries, from privileged countries, they come and they take some take of research outputs and samples and others. So they call it sometimes also even helicopter research or ethics dumping. So ethics dumping has become the new face of exploitative research in the 21st century. So people are very worried about this one, and we'll see what are the challenges and some remedies. Ethics dumping occurs mainly in 3 varieties, in 3 forms. Number 1, it is intentionally done by the researchers that the research prohibited in the high income country setting, and intentionally they export it to the middle and low income country where research is not highly advanced. That's one, intentional. Number 2, when there is insufficient ethics knowledge and awareness on the part of the mobile researcher, with lack of knowledge or awareness on the part of mobile researcher is the second form. And the third one, researchers may justify using lower ethical standards internationally in the belief that they are helping you, helping vulnerable, we are helping you, so you don't have this and other resources. As a result, we want to help you, and you just using the opportunity of lower ethical standard in the lower setup, they will introduce this ethics dumping process. So these are the 3 forms by which research ethics dumping can happen. In all cases, lack of adequate oversight mechanism in the host low middle income country is likely to exacerbate the problem. It's a lack of adequate oversight mechanism. It's important. In any cases, the mechanism, the knowledge, rules, regulations, standards in the low and middle income country is when it is inadequate. Now ethics dumping will be exacerbated. So ethics dumping is it's a practice that has become more important with globalization nowadays. And as the mobility of researchers has increased, it can even occur just inadvertently when genuine, well-meaning researchers from high-income country that they believe they are solving problems in low-income country, they are found to disrupt local communities in an ethical manner. Cases of ethics dumping in the 21st century are many now. We all remember the most important ethics and ethical researches conducted in the globe. That you remember, Nazi experiment, the Tuskegee experiment are mentioned usually, but these are not suitable example nowadays to learn about ethics problem in the 21st centuries. So ethics dumping does take place today, but the form is different. It's not in the form of obviously malicious and horrific activities as that of the Nazi and the Tuskegee trials. They take a different form, as I mentioned earlier, and ethics dumping is really taking place in the 21st century. So there are several cases. Just to mention some of them, I'll try to give you some important cases of ethics dumping in the global collaborative research. Notably, number one, there were 3 randomized clinical trials of visual inspection with acetic acid screening of cervical cancer, and no screening with no screening arm in India that conducted from 1998 to 2015, just to determine healthcare workers could conduct cervical cancer screening by simply visual inspection versus the standard care, that is the cytology, pap smear. In this research activity, 374,000 women are recruited, out of which 114,000 were controls, meaning controls without screening. No screening, just they kept as control. They denied the actual screening, the standard screening cytologic method, and they kept them as control, out of which 254 died due to cervical cancer. Actually, pap smear was a standard care in India since 1970, but this research was not allowed in USA. But it was accepted by the USA funders for clinical trials in India. This is one area, this is just demonstrated as there is a double standard in the developed and underdeveloped nations. That is one case. Another case, there was a genomic, this is lack of community involvement. In 2010, genomic research project entitled Complete Caucasian and Bantu Genome from South Africa. Their intention was to compare the genetic makeup of indigenous people from Namibia, with South African indigenous group, and they conducted whole genome sequencing of certain 4 individuals, elder individuals from Bantu group. Then they come to conclude that this group of people are very primitive. They are Caucasian, they are hunter-gatherer type, they are Bushman, and the conclusion was published in Nature, which is a very known science journal, as you all know. Then this, by the community leaders, this conclusion was taken as very discriminatory, pejorative, and inappropriate, and they accused the researchers, and finally Nature withdrew the publications. Since then, this group of people from South Africa, the some people they call them themselves, they develop their own code of conduct, and no one will conduct genomic research unless their leaders get assented. That's one. Another one, just exporting valuable blood from the poor rural China without benefit sharing. So they took thousands and thousands of blood sample from rural China, US Harvard University mainly, from China, and they store in their genetic bank, that leading to a large amount of research funding for the US team. The samples were exported to the US, mainly Harvard School of Public Health, for research into a different non-communicable diseases like asthma, diabetic, hypertension, cancer, and so on. So the project was funded by a US pharmaceutical company called Millennium Company, pharmaceutical company, which is the ultimate source of the beneficiary. This project resulted in multi-millionaire dollar investment in the company, while the sample donors received nothing except just $1 per day or something like that. So ultimately, the company owned the patent, and then the company just attracted funders. For example, a Swedish company, AstraZeneca, invested 53 million for the research of respiratory disease on the genetic resources collected from China. Then another company, $70 million invested on the genetic resource collected from poor China in the US. Then the stock price of the company significantly increased from $4 per share, US dollar in 1995 to more than $100 US per share in June 2000. Look how they make it commercialized, the genetic resources of the poor Chinese group. Millennium senior managers also just earned a net benefit of over 10 million per person through trade in stocks. Imagine how it was exploited. So this will lead us to have three levels of exploitation. One, the local research participants are exploited, the actual owner of the sample. Now, local scientific community in China is also exploited, and the country national interest is also exploited. Here, earlier, I would like to remind you earlier conventions on genetic resources. There were two earlier conventions. One is Convention on Biological Biodiversity, which is endorsed in 1993, the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing, which is developed in 2010 and endorsed in 2013. But all these are not just preventing from exploitations. Another cases of where ethics dumping is offshoring of animal research. In UK, non-human
Dr. Erdaw, are you there? Hello? Are you muted or? Disconnected.
I think the connection is interrupted with Dr. Erdaw.
Yeah, but I can see the screen.
Yes.
Salat, can you call him? Dr. Erdaw, is it? Apologies. Let's try to reach Dr. Erdaw. Okay, Erdaw is joining back. Dr. Erdaw, you can share your screen again. I think it was a power interruption on his side. Apologies for the inconvenience. Okay, you can continue. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, where did I lost? I was talking on offshoring animal research.
You were on offshoring, yes.
Okay, so this is another cases where research cannot be done in higher income country and conducted in Nairobi, Kenya, where the ethics standard is not highly advanced. So this is one double standard case. Another one is misleading consent process in vaccine trial is another case, just example. Ebola vaccine vaccine trial was conducted just following Ebola outbreak in 2013 in West Africa. And the trial was on vaccine phase 1 and phase 2. As you know, this is immunological and safety stage test, but they falsely informed the participant as fully investigated safe vaccine. So this is a misleading consent process, and people were accepting the trial vaccine as a true vaccine. So this is one evidence where ethics dumping happened. There are several issues. There are several books written by Professor Shidor and others, and they analyzed about 28 cases globally conducted where they thought ethics dumping happened. Out of all this, they tried to summarize their finding into 6 categories. Some of them are patronizing conduct, meaning patronizing conduct, that's the researcher from a high-income country, we know best, so you have to accept. This is the attitude where they start to inculcate Another, unfair distributions of benefit and burden, as we mentioned in the cases earlier, unfair distribution of benefit and burden. The other category, culturally inappropriate conduct. Researchers from a high-income country in the collaboration, they don't respect the culture and they don't know the culture, and they don't respect also some of the culture of that indigenous people. And in some cases, they use double standards, meaning research that is not allowed in higher income country is just they try to perform in low income country. Lack of diligence and lack of transparency as the vaccine trial I mentioned. So these are some of the categories, and you can read the cases. And one thing that at this juncture, I would like to see some challenges faced by ethics committee, research ethics committee of the Kenyan cases, because they have some much contribution in it in preventing ethics dumping earlier. So they contributed also for the document and the code of conduct developed. So they summarize their challenge. I thought these challenges are also facing our IRB. That's why. Number one, variations in government standard is a challenge. Resistance to double ethics review. And then once they review in their high income country, just say they ignore the review process in the host country. Resource constraint, unresolved issues in the management of biological samples, unresolved issues in the management of primary data. All this is something that we are also facing in our IRB meetings. Another challenge for research ethics, unsuitable informed consent procedures. The scientific informations are very bulky, and they are not translated properly to the language, to the level, to the understanding of the participants and others. Cultural and sensitivity. There are cases by which some cultures are different from others, so there are cultural and sensitive issues differing in a standard of care, just like that of cervical cancer screening with visual infection and with cytology. Reluctance to provide feedback to the research community, to the participant, the researchers of local community. Power difference with many, which facilitate the exploitation of local research. Lack of local relevance or affordability of the resultant product. And these are about 11 challenges. I found them. They are equally challenge of our IRB too. So another issue that with this, I'm just interested to share with some material transfer agreement issues. I took this from material transfer agreement from our cases from Ethiopia. So the recipient, it says, just I'll read and then you'll notice the challenge. In material transfer agreement, it says the recipient shall notify the provider in writing or any intention, improvement, modification, discovery, or development to the material or the information made by recipient or parties. Collaborating with the recipient, here in afterward referred as invention. However, it says that's a problem. Nothing in this agreement shall, however, be constrained or conveyed or taken as conveying to the provider any right under any patent or other intellectual property to such invention other than as explicitly provided herein. This is a statement I took from one of the material transfer agreement form in Ethiopia. This is what my worriness is. Where is the benefit sharing aspect of the research? Just like that of the Chinese people snatched their genetic information and denied their benefit, here we are also giving our genetic material or material resources. If any invention is come out of that, then our researchers and the nation will not have any right. So I would like to open discussion here later on this intervention, how we are going to tackle such type of problem in our collaborative research. Just keep on and we'll discuss later. Then, so we are poor countries. We are just to academics are facing to eradicate poverty, and at the same time we are facing with ethics dumping. So what can academics do? Poverty reduction and research without ethics dumping. How could we help them? As you know, good science, good for science, good for poverty reduction may not be an excuse for ethics dumping. So the best antidote, the best resolution for this ethics dumping is strong collaboration between the outsiders and local researchers and the communities. So academicians should take note of the most popular saying of Nelson Mandela's famous quote. I quote, "Everything that is done for me without me is done against me." So we need to have right involvement in whatever we are trying to do in our research. So with this, there is a newly emergence of global code of conduct to tackle this ethics dumping. That is my main interest. As you know, the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goal calls for more research, more innovation to end the poverty. No one behind, just this is a call. And then, however, ethics dumping is a major concern yet. So counter ethics dumping, global code of conduct for research in resource poor setting is an agenda now. So this code of conduct research in resource poor setting is mainly developed for collaborative research. It is completed, it started in 2015, something like that, and several people are involved, and it was completed in May 2018 and adopted by European Commission in August 2018. So it is a value-based collaborative research, and then it is the code was co-created by global ethics just professionals, very senior professionals, containing about 56 co-authors represented from some vulnerable research populations, low and middle income country tax leaders, women leaders, and just global represented, sponsored by Trust Fund. It showed they developed and then study hard. And then this code of conduct is based on fairness, respect, care, and honesty. It is a value-based rather than principle and standard-based. They make it just a value-based. They found that this value based on fairness, respect, care, and honesty are not are something that have been found violated from ethics dumping. It occurs. It's leading to the loss of trust in researchers and even research itself. So what happened? Okay. Global code of conduct is meant for equitable research partnership, equitable. So this will counter ethics dumping just by providing guidance across all the research disciplines, whatever it is, social science, natural science, basic science, whatever, presenting very clear short statement in simple language to achieve the highest possible accessibility. It has 23 articles written very clearly in in simple language that everyone can understand, focusing on research collaboration that entail considerable imbalance of power, resource, knowledge, and it mainly avoids double standard between high-income and low-income countries. As I said, it's mainly framed based on values of fairness, respect, care, and honesty. These are the values just I mentioned. Value compass. Why standard principles, values, and ideals can guide moral action? Why global code of conduct is value-based when there's just research have been indicating that values inspire action than standards and principles. They motivate people to act. Value is important. Values provide just middle way, golden middle way between overly prescriptive as that of standard and principle and overly aspirational as that of ideals. So value will take out the golden middle way from standards and ideals. Values emerged naturally from the major injectment activities taken prior to developing this. It is based on fact-finding documents were done prior to its development. It is based on evidence. So the earliest research ethics, there are research ethics guidelines, thousands and thousands of codes are developed. The earliest ones like November Code 1949, Declaration of Helsinki 1964 were written solely for researchers. Then as IRB is established in 1966, ethics codes again targeting researchers and REC. REC is for just the European style, Research Ethics Committee to me. IRBs from the American side, Institutional Review Board, it's the same. The Global Code of Conduct developed with 3 audiences in mind, unless the previous codes. It includes the researchers, IRBs or RECs, and research participants. This is how the Global Code of Conduct was built, involving a serious consultation of vulnerable populations, ethics committee leaders, industry, researchers across the globe, funders, policymakers, fact-finding, as I said, that they globally find all researchers that's supposed to be unethical. Then literatures, case studies, existing guidelines are all consulted, then legal instrument, then they draft and they develop the code of conduct with 23 articles with pages of material, and you can read the article. This article, within 2 years after it has been adopted by European Commission, it was found to be accepted, applied by over 40 countries. Mainly, as you can see in the map, mainly African countries are accepting, some Latin America's, Asian countries, mainly concentrating on low and middle income countries. I can see Ethiopia too. This data was taken from funders, applied for funding, possible funding from European Commission, 2020 Horizon, and there is also another European clinical trial partnership funder. These 2 funders are big funders, and both of them accept Global Code of Conduct since 2018. So this data is taken from this. There may be researchers from Ethiopia collaborating with this are also accepting. Otherwise, they will not fund any researcher. This European Commission sources are not funding anymore unless they accept and adopt this code. So mainly African countries are accepting, South Africa and the Cape Town and others. So we'll see how we are going to adapt this code of conduct in our scenario too. Now, I will pose you some questions. Maybe I have some discussion questions. Do you think our international research collaborations are free from ethics dumping? You may reflect on this one before we finish and take your questions. Anyone? Do you think our international research collaborations are free from ethics dumping? Does anyone reflect?
You can either raise your hands or unmute yourself and speak. So, Lindsay, and then Dr. Mulugeta. Lindsay, go ahead.
I thank you for this chance. I think our international collaborations are prone to this kind of thing even if we have a National Research Ethics Committee and institutional committees in certain universities, there is no law currently applied to prevent them from doing anything unethical. So there's no cross-check, even if we note as a principle. In my experience and from my reading so far, I haven't seen any legal action being taken for those who are doing ethical dumping. So that gives a gap for unethical conduct in between. I recently heard that there's a the National Committee is preparing a legal code of conduct with legal consequences for those doing unethical conduct, but I'm not sure how practical it is as we speak right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
There was another hand. I don't think we heard you. So much on. Otherwise, there were also some responses in the chat. Dr. Mulgita. So Dr. Malit was saying, no, we are being challenged now. No, we are being challenged ethically. The ethical inequities, the reason clinical trials are not conducted. And Dr. Mulgita texted saying, go ahead, since he's not being heard. So you can continue.
So, yeah, as the first speaker clearly indicated out, there is a means by which our collaborative researchers will face or facing ethics dumping. So we should have to be very vigilant and keep our eyes on standards that were introduced with this global code of conduct. So intentionally or non-intentionally, accidentally, we may be victim of this international from the international research collaborations. From few experience we had, I just witnessed, and there are some ethics dumping was going on without our knowledge. And maybe how can researchers avoid accidental ethics dumping in their international collaboration? Maybe my next point of discussion. Just you may, Dr. Adam, you may again seek participant to reply. How can researchers avoid accidental ethics dumping?
I don't see the hand. There is a text from Atunya said our international research collaboration is highly susceptible to ethics dumping. It goes with the first one, I think. The question is, how can we avoid, right?
Yeah, how can we avoid?
I think you alluded to some of the recommended strategies, right? So having a regulatory framework and a regulatory mechanism both at national and global levels here. But I think I will go back to the same question which Lindsay was posing. I mean, how do we ensure if we can implement those guidelines? But I think that's for further discussion.
Yeah, that's also the last maybe.
Okay.
How could we adopt? How could we use the new global code of conduct for research? So that's our next discussion. You are right.
Is there any other person? Azarel, I see you.
Okay, for the second question. May
yes,
I
go ahead. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is basically Ndala. I'm a PhD student at Addis Ababa University, Department of Sport Science. So basically, this is a new concept for me. I'm getting some new concepts here. So such kind of training is or seminars will help us, young researcher like me and others, from engaging in such problem. So getting such kind of seminars from your institution as well as other institutions will help us from going into this problem, and the other also reading things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Azarel. I think he's mentioning that having such trainings, awareness raising for researchers would be helpful. A text from Dr. Mahalit. Discuss our collaborations with those that have the experience, one point, get awareness on GCC, and capacity development like this one. And I think you can continue.
So participants are raising their hand, I don't know.
Is there any other hand? Dr. Mulugeta, is it new or it's from the last one? I saw Lindsay. Okay, Lindsay or Dr. Mulugeta, you can unmute yourself and speak.
My point of view is,
Please.
so my point of view is, if we can include this to research ethics in the regular research methodology curriculum for every department, not just for public health or for medicine, but in every department in more detailed way, I think researchers will be more conscious and more aware about research ethics, and it would be easier to prevent unethical conduct. So adopting the new GCC into the research ethics methodology curriculum would be, it would help address more researchers in short time. Thank you.
Asfa, can continue.
Hi. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hasfa Nanyeji, incidentally calling in, joining in from Uganda. I am a former student of Addis Ababa University.
Welcome.
So my thoughts about this discussion, when you say, do you think our international research collaborations are free from ethics dumping? Absolutely not. So I feel like they are really, really, really susceptible to ethics dumping, because when you look at the field of research is extremely dynamic, and at the end of the day, it comes down to business. So as researchers, as we need to strike a balance between science, business, and research. So there are always stakeholders in all these things. So one way researchers, and this I have seen it happening in very many institutions. So one way researchers do avoid accidental ethics dumping. And when it comes to Africa, where we all come, most of us come from, there are vulnerabilities that come when it comes to the field of research. And these vulnerabilities do not only occur at the side of the researchers. So am I more clear now?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so both the participants in research and the when it comes to ethics dumping. However, how can the researchers avoid this? So I have seen situations where the collaborators and the local PIs or the local researchers come together and sit to discuss a particular research protocol. So at the end of the day, the protocol that the collaborators have perhaps shared. Is it better now?
Yeah, on and off it is.
Okay.
That was better. Yeah, maybe if you could quickly make your point and yeah.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying. So the researchers and they are collaborating institutions. They normally sit down and discuss the SAINT protocol, and at the end of that day, they come up with something that basically
yeah, I think she's saying the researcher and the collaborator should come together.
They are representing when it comes to risk. Engaging in those discussions can avoid accident. And also our ethics and regulatory bodies, they also have a big role.
Yeah, you better to.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So do you want to continue with the discussion, Dr. Erdaw? There are, I think, Tachbele on the line, and there were some texts.
Take Tachbele.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Erdaw and Addis Ababa University IRB for coming with this very important point and new concept for all of us. I am actually from Walaita Sodo University, and currently I am working as a chairperson of IRB in Walaita Sodo University. Therefore, all these concepts that Dr. Erdaw come with is new for me, and thank you for having this. I will start from the first question. Can we, do you think our international research collaborations are free from ethics dumping? I can say totally no, because as you know that in Ethiopia, most of researchers, particularly genomic researchers, are donor-driven rather than that of our Ethiopian collaborator interest. Because of that, it is very difficult to us to remove ethical dumping. And while I come to how can a researcher avoid accidentally ethics dumping, is that, as I mentioned, that most of genomic researches are donor-driven. In that line, while I come to ethical dumping, that one might be arised from different points. The first one is from collaborator or from funder, the first one. The second one, from awareness of a researcher, particularly in developing country. And the third one, even IRB or a research ethical committee knowledge is another problem. Therefore, while I come to the solution, as well as a research fund came from abroad, a researcher should know what is the basic objectives of collaborator or funder here. Therefore, the knowledge gap of the researcher is one of the big challenge. Not the researcher, even to national level. Take Ethiopian Ethical Committee as example. In such a way, we have for ourselves, we have no knowledge on this ethics dumping. Therefore, the major gap came from different points. Therefore, if we come with such type of discussion and such types of training, not only for IRB members, also for researchers and the funder, we might, even if it is impossible to avoid, we can minimize that. That is my point. Thank you for your.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, Dr. Erdaw.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Shall we continue or?
Yes, continue.
Okay,
You can continue.
thank you. The last remark made by Dr. Tachbele, and I have several issues. And so he is an ethics review committee member in his university, and then we may work together so that we will continue collaborating and giving awareness about ethics committee and researchers. So the last point, how could we adopt, therefore, this new global code of conduct for research in our resource pool setting? Is that, how could we go about it? This is globally, especially the European nations are completely accepting and adopting this global code of conduct for collaborative research. And it's only the American side and others are not taking so far into serious action. So how could we adapt or adopt the new code into our setting? Maybe we'll take some point and then maybe you may wind up before. So if we have some participant to comment on the last issue. This is my last slide. If we have, or Dr. Adam, could you say something about this, the last one?
Yes, Dr. Erdaw. The last point, I think some made some suggestions earlier on.
Yeah.
On how to introduce new initiatives for researchers and research training, mainstreaming into the curricula, awareness raising, and so on. But I think one critical element is how to strengthen the system, so that the system would monitor this and create sense of accountability and make sure the standards are maintained all across. I think that's the most critical point.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone from the national, but I think it goes all the way to national and also international levels. And also, I have heard some researchers shopping around, like coming from Europe. They may go to like Ethiopia if they were rejected by the Ethiopian national. They may go to Kenya or Uganda or the different, and then they end up, working the research over there. So if there were such double standards, then it will be difficult to maintain such code of conduct, I think. Yeah, but I don't know if anyone has any other suggestion.
Okay.
So,
okay, thank you. So this is my last slide, and then we try to see the concept of ethics dumping. Just to wind up, ethics dumping is recently introduced concept by European Commission and defined by just simply it is it's a process of exporting unethical research from developed countries to low-income countries. Then we try to see also some challenges of ethics committee as a result, and we try to see how global code of conduct is developed as a remedy to have sustainable and last-longing and respectful and benefit sharing type of research collaboration across the globe. And finally, we'll try to see in detail the protocols in our side, and we'll try to introduce aware the whole community, and then we'll try to adopt maybe the global code of conduct. So these are some of the points I would like to share today. If you have questions, maybe if you ask Dr. Erdaw may accept some questions or
Yes.
From participant, and we'll wind up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Erdaw. Thank you. This was an excellent exposition to the topic. I think you have introduced the concept, the types of ethics dumping, and most importantly, you have made us reflect how this might affect us, and so that we think through it. So this is an important issue that needs to be taken into consideration in any international collaboration. So in any way, it doesn't mean we shouldn't collaborate or we shouldn't be discouraging any form of collaboration. But I think we have to be careful, as is with any other research. Yeah, we promote healthy collaboration, healthy and ethical collaboration, yeah. Clean of dumping. Okay, thank you. Any questions or feedback or comment? Maybe I will allow up to 3, then we'll conclude. Anyone? Okay, I don't see any question in the chat box, and I didn't see any additional hand.
Tachbele is also raising.
Tachbele, I thought it was from before. Oh, Tachbele, please, Dr. Tachbele, you can provide us with a feedback or any questions that you might have. Unmute yourself. You can talk. You are still muted.
Sorry. I wanted to know either your experience or Addis Ababa University experience or national level experience on preventing ethics dumping, where we are as a nation, Ethiopia. So if you have any information on that, please would you share for us? Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to respond? I don't see anyone from the national. Let me know if there is anyone from the national or from other ethics committees. I see someone from or from our ethics committee at the College of Health Sciences. Who would like to respond? How are we addressing? What are the experiences currently in preventing ethics dumping in Ethiopia? Yeah, maybe, I don't know, others also may add. We haven't yet used the term in our SOPs. As you know, all ethics committees to have SOPs, should have SOPs. And we haven't yet introduced the term, but whenever there is a collaborative type of research which involves international collaboration, there are a list of questions that we ask. So we measure the degree of involvement of the local collaborator. Always there should be a local collaborator. And we want to see how the collaboration emerged and who is in charge somehow. I mean, it's difficult to know the whole story, but I think that's what we try to do. And we try to assess if there is fairness in that undertaking. Other than that, we apply the same ethics appraisal framework for the projects, and issues like fairness, who will be benefiting from the results, where are the samples going, and where will be the end result, and so on. But as far as I know, ethics dumping is not yet, it doesn't exist as an SOP by itself, but it's already introduced into the existing SOPs in assessing collaborative research, as I just mentioned. I don't know if that's satisfied you.
Yeah, just to these protocols, global code of conduct is emerged to fill the gap of the already existing protocols. There are cases identified, all the cases identified and just categorized as unethical research in the ethics dumping process were tried to map out with the already existing SOPs of our code of conduct of the world. Yet they are gap on fairness, particularly on fairness, on respect, on giving honesty and care. There are gaps. So these new global initiatives will fill the gap and complement the existing protocols, the existing codes. So if we see in our SOP, these standards, there are 23 articles based on 4 values, as I mentioned, based on fairness, care, respect, honesty. So they fill the gap. So just as Dr. Erdaw mentioned, we tried to screen just unethical issues. We tried to ask several questions in our protocol approval, yet there are gaps. So to fill the gap, we should have to continue as a nation. We should have to struggle to save our partners, especially this genetic information dumping. There are several consequences as a result. So we'll keep on updating, awareing, and just thank you, Dr. Tachbele, to joining us today. Maybe we continue screening or awareing our ethics committee members or our members, and we'll continue to incorporate all these ethics dumping issues at the national level. There are gaps. I read an article, just a paragraph from the National Ethics Committee Material Transfer Agreement. Do you remember in the middle of my presentation?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, you see, there's a huge gap. Maybe that gap is not filled so far by. The gap, this is something that I showed you. Any innovation, any invention from your sample may not be entitled to give you the right, it says. How honor. This is, I took from Moshe, from previous Moshe, or now the National Ethics Committee. So this is a huge gap we have in the National Ethics Committee protocols. And we are using this protocol. As far as we are using in the agreement, and I doubt there is unfair benefit distribution between low-income country researchers and high-income country researchers. So we keep on working on strengthening our knowledge, our vigilance, and I hope we'll come to
Thank you.
strong enough.
Thank you, Dr. Erdaw. I think for the interest of time, we may have to wrap up. So once again, I would like to thank Dr. Erdaw for the courage in taking this very important and challenging topic, and as I think adequately challenged all of us. So we'll continue with this seminar series on monthly basis. Keep tuned, and we'll also are working on in awarding credit points for those who regularly attend. So I think that's will be implemented as of now. And I don't know if Bezalot or La'alam has any announcement about any subsequent seminars. As I understood, this is recorded and will be shared to participants, including the PowerPoint slides. Other than that, I think Dr. Erdaw, I think this will also have to be looked into our own IRB as well. We may look into this GCC guideline and how we may implement this in our reviews. I think we will discuss about that separately.
Thank you.
So unless anyone has any comments or any announcements from the organizers, we'll stop here. I would like to thank La'alam and the Bezalot secretariats of our IRB for organizing this and keeping track of participants and reminders. I don't see any hand. So thank you, everyone. Have a nice weekend. and see you soon in the next seminar. Thank you, Dr. Erdaw.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone.